Happy Valentine's Day, my friends. Oh my gosh, I wish you all the love, all the joy, and all the happiness. Hello, beautiful people of the internet. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I'm so excited that you joined me today. Today, I am going to show you my top 10 romances that I've ever read. Given I am not a huge romance reader, I have really just become a romance reader this past year, and I've read some good ones and I've read some really bad ones. I definitely wanted to share the ones that I personally believe that are worth your time. Hopefully I've got a pretty wide list here for you today. I know everyone has their own opinion when it comes to romances. As I go through each book, I'm going to be giving it a rating as far as how open door it is, which means how clean it is or how spicy it is. If you see a rating down below the book, that is what that is, and just kind of take that on your own accord. I know everybody has their own opinion when it comes to romances. I don't really have one. I don't mind a spicy scene every once in a while, but I don't want something that's making me super uncomfortable. So hopefully I've got a pretty wide list here for you, and let's get started. So I've rated these books 10 to 1. So we're gonna start at number 10 and go all the way up to number 1, which is my favorite romance of all time. Honestly, I feel like if you watch me for a second, you won't be surprised about that one. But let's start with number 10. Coming in at number 10 is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series that follows 3 brothers that own an amusement park. This is one of my favorite romance series of all time. You're gonna see like the other books somewhere on this list, but this is the second one. It follows Declan and Iris. Declan is more so the more quiet and reserved brother, and honestly, if I were gonna pick like my least favorite of the brothers, he would be my least favorite, just because there were some points that I was like, I don't really like him. But what really drew me into this book was the overall plot in the story. So basically, Declan is in the running for the CEO of the business, and to be CEO, his father really wants him to be married. And so thus we meet Iris, and Iris is Declan's assistant. They decide that they are going to have this fake marriage sort of a thing. So they get married, and from there they start realizing that maybe they have more feelings than they thought they had for each other. Oh my goodness, this one was just so stinking cute. And honestly, Lauren Asher's adult romances are elite. I mean, nobody can do romances like she can. Overall, I thought it was such an adorable story. Coming in at number 9 was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey is also a really great romance writer if you've not read by her. This is the first book in the Bellinger sister series. This one follows Piper and Brendan, and it sets place at this rural fishing town, and Piper is this big city girl who has to go here to kind of figure out her life and get her life together, because she has just been living life how she wants to and getting in trouble and all sorts of things. And when she gets here, she discovers that her late father actually owns a bar, and Piper takes it upon herself to kind of fix it up and turn it into something that is actually used. And along the way, she meets Brendan, who is a local fisherman. And again, I just love the setting of this one. Personally, my biggest complaint with this one was Piper. She can be a little annoying at times, but honestly, the overall setting and the romance and the plot just hooked me in, and I just love this one. Coming in at number 8 is a book that I read in this past December, and that is A Cross-Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. Courtney Walsh is a new author for me, and I am definitely going to be picking up her books from now on, because this romance was so stinking cute. So this one is obviously a Christmas romance. This one follows Lauren and Will, and Lauren and Will have been friends. They kind of grew up together. It's a best friend's brother sort of romance, because Will is Lauren's brother's best friend, and so obviously they grew up together. from the very beginning of the book, you know that Lauren has had this crush on Will, but something has happened. Will did something to Lauren, and honestly, she thinks it's unforgivable and she can't get past it. Basically, the plot of the book is that Lauren was going to visit her brother for the holidays and ends up catching a ride with Will. So basically, the book is following their journey and their stops in the different places they go along this journey and how they fall in love together. And it's just so stinking cute. Honestly, it was the perfect romance for Christmas time. And it shocked me a little bit about the conversations and the heaviness that was in this book because it looks super cute. It's super short and it doesn't look like much of anything, but the conversations that were had in here were absolutely incredible, and I just highly recommend this one. Next, coming in at number 7 is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. If this looks familiar, it should. This is the second book in the Billick and Her Sister series. Hannah is Piper's sister and Fox is Brendan's best friend. Basically, we're back in this rural fishing town visiting Fox, and Hannah again is from the big city and she is working on a movie, and her movie actually gets to come to this fishing town. And what I love most about this one is that Hannah and Fox start out as friends and they have so much in common. They're constantly talking about music. There's lots of music references in here and I just absolutely love that. And the things that Fox does for this girl is just absolutely adorable. What I loved most about this one is that it's more than just a romance. I think that it dives deeper into each one of them individually first and kind of works on them first and then comes together as them as a couple. I thought Fox was one of the best book boyfriends that I've ever read. I think that he is so well developed and I just loved them together. I loved them way more than I loved Piper and Brendan because I thought their chemistry was actually there. So yes, Hook, Line, and Sinker was definitely a 5-star for me. Coming in at number 6 is another one that I don't physically own, but that is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Again, if this one looks familiar, it should. It is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. Rowan is another brother that owns this amusement park along with Declan and Cal. Rowan is probably my favorite brother that I've read so far. If you watched my last video, I talked about how much I'm probably going to love Cal. Cal is in the 3rd book. Like I said, this one is following Rowan and Zara. And honestly, Zara made this entire book. I absolutely love Zara. She's so hardworking. Her work ethic is incredible. And honestly, she was an inspiration to me. I loved Zara. So obviously I knew I loved Zara, so I was really rooting for the relationship. Rowan was a sweetheart. All 3 of the brothers kind of have this hard shell exterior, but they're kind of forced to be that way because their dad was a terrible human being. But once they get together with like their soulmate, you can kind of see that hard shell kind of break a little bit. And honestly, I just really loved Rowan and Zara's story. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. Coming in at number 5 is a YA romance, and I know that it's kind of crazy that a YA romance is this far up on my list because I'm not really one for YA romances. I can't deal with the angst and just like the immaturity most of the time, but this one you're gonna want to read. I'm sure you've heard all about this one. This one is This Summer I Turned Pretty series by Jenny Han. This one follows Belly, and Belly is this little girl. Well, I say she's little. She's probably like in her late teens. I can't remember exactly how old Belly is in this one, but I know she's rather young. And basically every year, every summer, her and her family go to Cousin's Beach and stay at their beach house, as well as her mother's best friend and her 2 sons, Conrad and Jeremiah. Ever since they've been going to Cousin's Beach, Belly has had the biggest crush on Conrad. Each book changes, like you change teams. At least I did. I did that for the first couple of books. but my opinion kind of changed the third book. And it was the most wholesome, most precious little romance that I've read in a very long time, and I feel like anybody would enjoy this one. Honestly, I recommend this one if you were just getting into reading, or even if you're just getting into romance. I feel like this is a great one to start with because it's very clean, it's very simple, and it's very, very wholesome. So yes, you cannot go wrong with this one. She even came out with a TV series for this book, and I just love it so much. All right, coming in at number 4 is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. Yes, I had to mention Colleen Hoover on this list because I know Colleen Hoover has kind of just swooped in and taken every reader possible. Colleen Hoover is one of those romance writers that can be problematic, in my opinion. I feel like there's a lot of things in her books that are like iffy. But this particular romance that I read from her, oh my goodness, it completely ripped my heart out. So this one is following Kenna and Ledger, and Kenna has served some time in prison for something that happened in her past life, and she is not able to see her daughter due to the fact that she has been serving in prison. Ledger's family has actually been the one that has been keeping Kenna's daughter while she's been in jail. So basically, after Kenna gets out of jail, the first thing she wants to do is go and see her daughter. Ledger and Ledger's family are persistent on not letting Kenna see her at all, and honestly the lengths that she takes to see her daughter are pretty admirable. Throughout the book, you are trying to figure out why Kenna spent some time in jail, but your heart is also breaking because you feel Kenna's pain. You want her to see her daughter so badly, and honestly throughout the book you're like, Ledger's this bad guy because he won't let Kenna see her daughter. So Kenna and Ledger, and honestly the book is following both of them like individually trying to figure this out as well as coming together, and it is just so good. Honestly, it is one of the heavier romances on this list, so please tread with caution. There are lots of different trigger warnings in here. There's lots of heavy conversations, so please tread with this one very cautiously, but it's so good. I don't think I'm mentally prepared to tell you about this next one. Number 3 is another YA romance, but hear me out. This one is Lovely War by Julie Berry. If you have not read this book, you need to make this a priority. Oh my goodness. This is not only one of the most precious romances that I've ever read, but it's honestly one of the most beautiful books I've ever read and one of the most hard-hitting. So basically this one takes place in 1917 at the height of World War II. It follows Hazel and James, and Hazel and James are very young. I think they're in their late teens when they first meet, and it takes place in London, and they see each other and they automatically know that they have feelings for each other. And long story short, James is being enlisted in the army, obviously to fight in the war, and it just follows the two of them as they kind of work this out. You know, it follows them both individual. James as he goes off to war, and Hazel as she's worrying at home. And honestly, I just want to cry thinking about it. It's a very, very tough one to read, but it pulls at your heartstrings so heavily. This is such a unique story because not only are you getting Hazel and James' side of the story, but it kind of turns points of view, and you're following like these Greek gods, like Ares, the god of war, Persephone, I forget the rest of them that are in there, but they're all talking about literally the same thing, and as the book goes on, they are talking about Hazel and James, and they're kind of all working together to make Hazel and James kind of have this happily ever after. Oh my gosh. And honestly, like, I know it's pure fiction, but this one, I still think about this one. I read this one 2 years ago and absolutely loved it. It made me cry. It made me feel all the things. Again, if you've not read this one, please make it a priority. Okay, coming in at number 2, this one may surprise some of you because here until just recently, this one was my favorite romance of all time, and that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. And in my opinion, this is one of the best romances of all time. And honestly, I feel like I'm a little biased because Dr. Adam Carlson is based off of Adam Driver in real life, and I feel like that speaks for itself. So if you've not read anything by Ali Hazelwood, she writes her women in STEM. Basically, all of her women characters are in STEM at some degree. I believe Olive is some sort of scientist, but she is still a student, so she's still at her school. Basically, the book starts out with Olive talking to her friend, and her friend is like, hey, I really want to date your ex, but I feel like you're not over him. And Olive is like, I am so over that guy, okay? And then she turns around and kisses the first guy that she sees, and the first guy that she comes into contact with is Dr. Adam Carlson, one of the professors at her school. And she's like, see, I have a boyfriend, like this guy right here. From there, Dr. Carlson and Olive have to strike up this fake dating sort of a thing to convince her friend that she's over her ex. And honestly, it sounds so silly, but it's so good. The banter between these two. Dr. Carlson is the grumpiest character you're ever going to meet, and Olive is such a ray of sunshine, and the two of them like coming together and their banter is hilarious. Oh my gosh, I laughed out loud so many times, and I read this one in a night. I stayed up like most of the night to read this one, and I finished it literally within like 6 hours. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was an easy 5-star for me. Again, one of my favorite romances of all time. We finally made it. We've made it to number 1 on this list. Do we have any guesses? Let me explain this one. My favorite romance of all time is part of a series, and it's number 4 in this series. So the series that I'm talking about is The Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. This series is a easy 5-star series for me. I've read all of them and absolutely devoured and loved each and every book. Basically, this series is following a group of friends that come together to make this bromance book club, and all they read are romance books. They really want to learn how to kind of treat the loves in their lives better and be better men overall. I mean, that concept is just so stinking cute. How can you not want to read this series? But my favorite romance comes out of this series, and it's book number 4, Isn't It Bromantic? This book, oh my gosh, I literally smiled from page 1 to the last page. This book is following Vlad, and throughout the books, Vlad is called the Russian. He's a Russian hockey player, and he has so many issues. Like, he has digestive issues, and he can't eat cheese, and he's just hilarious. Oh my gosh. 1, he's hilarious. 2, he's just the most wholesome guy that we've read in this entire series. Oh my gosh, he's such a little puppy. He's a golden retriever. He just loves and wants to be loved, and let's protect him at all costs. So like I said, this one is following Vlad and Elena, and Elena and Vlad are married. But it was kind of a forced marriage sort of a thing because they grew up together and they were friends, and Elena lived in Russia and she really wanted to come to the States. So in order to do that, she had to marry Vlad. Basically, they're in this forced marriage where they're kind of friends, not really husband and wife. So in the very beginning of this, Elena decides that she's finished and she's going back to Russia, and she doesn't want to partake in anything else with Vlad. She wants a divorce because she feels that she doesn't belong in this whole group of friends that he has and just in America in general. Like at the very beginning of this, you know that he truly loves Elena and he truly cares for her, and he ends up getting hurt in the very beginning of the story. As soon as Elena says that she wants a divorce, he ends up getting hurt at a game. And obviously the doctors are like, who can we call for you? And they end up calling Elena. And Elena's like, well, you know, I have to go back, blah, blah, blah. But she ends up coming back to take care of Vlad because he is pretty banged up and needs a lot of help. And I'm sorry. Okay? This, if you want a perfect, like no complaints, absolutely zero, a perfect romance, it's right here. This one right here, my friends. Vlad is so cute. And honestly, you're watching Elena, like her hard shell kind of break and fall back in love with Vlad. It's so good. It's so good. I'm sorry. Right here. #1 romance. So good. There you have it, my friends. I have talked you to death about the top 10 romances that I've ever read in my entire life. Hopefully you've got a recommendation off of this list. I hopefully got an array of different romances for everybody. Again, I know everybody has their own opinion when it comes to romances, but please let me know down below if you got a recommendation for me. I would love to know what romances that you love. What's your favorite romance of all time? And I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!